So is it important for you to maintain a blogging schedule? Well, I guess it depends on the expert you ask, but from my past experiences, absolutely. However, some blogging schedules are quite difficult to maintain. I'm Michael with WriterSanctuary, and today we're going to talk about how to set up your blogging schedule for the future. Now, before we get started, hit the like button to help the channel out. For more videos about blogging, hit subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always hit me up on social media on Twitter and Facebook, or use contact form on WriterSanctuary.com's website. Okay, so why is it important to create a blogging schedule in the first place? Well, frankly, it mostly has to do with keeping Google happy and keeping your visitors happy. Because if you want to get subscribers to like push notifications or email, then you want to build a platform where people can rely on content at specific times. It's kind of like how back in the day, how televisions used to have certain programs at certain times. Like my family and I could always rely that Cheers was going to be out at 6 p.m. That was back in the 1980s. Oh, God. But if people can rely on a blog to publish pieces of content at specific times, then sometimes they'll clear up their schedule just to be able to read it. This is especially true if you pick at certain times that people are active on your website. I'll go into a little bit of that in a moment. And secondly, I've noticed that even though technically it's not part of the Google algorithm that anybody will admit to, I have found that blogs that maintain a specific schedule for publishing content are always ranked higher in search. And that's not just for the post either, that's for the entire site as a whole. I've noticed that every time I have maintained a certain writing schedule for between 3 and 6 months at a time, that the entire site would raise up in search results on their page rank. Every post would see an influx in impressions, and it still happens to this day. And lastly, maintaining a schedule can keep you motivated to keep writing. I know that when I look at my publishing schedule in Asana, it gives me more of a sense of urgency because I want to get those things done. That's because I've been treating everything like a business lately, and I don't have a boss standing over my shoulder telling me what to do, so I have to motivate myself to do it. And keeping up with this schedule helps me stay motivated. I'm less likely to skip days because I don't feel like writing, because when you wing it, you're more likely to just say, I'm going to skip today, and then you don't even worry about blogging. Before you know it, 3 months have gone by and you haven't wrote a single word. I know that a lot of my websites suffered because of that. Mostly because I spent a lot of my time writing for clients, and I really didn't treat my websites nearly with the respect that I did with my clients. Okay, so how do we set up a proper publishing schedule without hurting ourselves? Well, the first step is to know how much content you're able to produce in any given week. Like, I know there's a lot of experts out there that say that you should blog every day for 90 days in order for your content to start getting ranked in Google. Well, that's fine and all, but what if you have a full-time job? Blogging every day, especially if you want to create quality content, is going to take a lot of research from you. Plus, you need to write something that people want to read, which includes market research. So if you have a full-time job that you would like to become a blogger, being able to blog every day to crank out, I guess the experts say that 2,200 words a day is ideal. It's just not realistic. Of course, it also depends on what you're trying to cover and the type of content you create. But no matter how you slice it, you have to be realistic with yourself about how much content you're able to produce on a day-to-day basis. For instance, I know that I can dedicate at least 3 pieces of content to WriterSanctuary every week, but I also write for 4 other blogs and a couple of clients to try to maintain their websites. So no, I can't blog every day like I'd like to, but I make sure that I have a constant flow of content going to WriterSanctuary every week, or at least I do my best to do so. But yeah, that would be the first step, is to be realistic about how much content you're able to write. Second, kind of goes in with the first, know what your audience wants to read. Because you can't just blog about anything and expect an influx of traffic. If no one wants to read what you wrote, no one's going to come read it. This is why I try not to do videos first thing in the morning. Now, there's a lot of ways to find out what your audience wants to read, and Google and WordPress.com, if you install Jetpack, can help you along the way. Like at any given time, I can see the top 10 articles for any given month, day, or week of what has been the most influential content. And as you can see, the number 1 article is my review on Buy Me a Coffee. And since the Ko-Fi one also gets a little bit of the same traction, not nearly as much traffic, I can see that doing reviews on ways to monetize your website are quite effective. But visits doesn't necessarily mean that's what somebody wants to read. You also want to pay attention to things like your bounce rate and your on-page time, because anybody can just click on a link and visit your site. But if no one's reading the content, then it wasn't really effective in the first place. So do pay attention to the number of visits any particular piece of content gets, but also keep in mind the other things that go with it. Because if you write an article that gets like 10,000 hits a month but has a 100% bounce rate with 0 time on page, then that wasn't really an effective piece of content. You're not going to make any money with that. Number 3 is find the best times to publish your article. Now this is something you can either pay attention to with a bunch of different analytic tools. I use Google Analytics simply because it has the breakdown of when people actually visit the site. So I can go through and kind of gauge as to when the website gets more visitors per day and then decide when I want to publish the content. Now the reason why I want to do that is because if the readers are already active and they happen to subscribe to the push notifications, they'll get a pop-up anytime the new article goes live and they're more likely to read it, which generates more people coming back to the site. Now these aren't normally brand new readers, but it does help with the people coming back, and that's one of the keys that you want for a successful blog. Is not necessarily how much new traffic you get, but how well you are at sustaining the ones you get. Besides, if your target audience is more active on that time, even with the new visitors, you're still producing content that they might stumble across at the time that it gets published. Now the 4th step is to, well, obviously write the content. Like in my Asana page, I can see every day of all the different things I want to write. I schedule everything a week in advance. That way I have a constant flow of writing going on. And it's not just writing either. I do a lot of things in Asana, such as setting up what I want to fix on a website, the revamps I want to do, things I want to share on social media, stuff like that. But the point is putting in the effort to write the articles. That's where it's all at. Because it doesn't really matter if you come up with the best, most ideal schedule possible. If you still can't sit down and write it, then it doesn't really matter. And step 5 is to set your articles to publish in advance. Now if you use a system like WordPress, which is what most people use nowadays, there's a part of the publishing process where you can set it to schedule at any point in time, like any day, anytime. This is all based on your website settings for your own time zone, so set it accordingly. See, like with WriterSanctuary, I publish at 10:30 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because that's the most busiest days and the most busiest time. And since I'm able to dedicate at least 3 articles per week to WriterSanctuary, that's the best schedule for me. Now, if you can write every day, that's great. Find out when people are more active on your site and crank out some content. Now, I like to schedule things in advance simply because if I have a task or a client that takes way too long in the day and I don't have time to write my blog post, then it gets skipped. But if it's already scheduled for, say, a Monday, then if a video I create on Monday takes up way too much time, I still have content coming out at the specific time all the time. And it keeps the site active, and Google likes that. Yeah, I find it extremely convenient to schedule things in advance. That way I don't have to worry about it. And if a client winds up taking my entire day, then I'm not stressed out about WriterSanctuary not getting content, or any of the other blogs I work on actually. So anywho, that's my process for setting up a schedule for writing content. I do this with all 5 blogs, well 4 blogs technically, because the 5th one is more of my personal website, and michaelbrockbank.com is just more of a, essentially I just put down all the things I do that aren't covered by the other 4 websites. So I don't even monetize that one, but it doesn't really matter. And my client too. I do the same thing with all my clients, is that we have a specific schedule of content that comes out, and we're dealing with tens of thousands of visitors per day. So yeah, having a great schedule that people can rely on is greatly beneficial, especially when you start getting that number. So what kind of things do you do for your blog to maintain your schedule? There's a lot of different plugins you can add for WordPress for doing an editorial calendar, and I was tempted to add some of those to mine, but I use Asana for all that, so I don't really need the plugin. But if you don't want to use Asana, I would suggest an editorial plugin. They're great, especially if you have a team environment. If you have more than just one person writing for you, then you can schedule out all kinds of content. But if you find the video informative, hit the like button. For more videos about blogging, freelance writing, WordPress, text broker, or anything else I cover, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. I think that's going to do it for me today. I'll see you tonight at the live stream.